I think one of the biggest topics today when it comes down to buying, whether it be a diesel, gas, truck, SUV, car, is reliability. The manufacturers have not been doing, in my opinion, a great job of giving us confidence in the products that they're building, because we're seeing engines go down before that 50,000 mile mark. There used to be a day where a gas engine could easily go 300,000 miles with just normal maintenance. And one would think, because of the advancement of the oils, right? Oils have gotten better. There was a time when synthetic oil was not something that was available. Now, you can make the argument that the viscosities have changed quite a bit, and that could be a culprit. But should you be concerned about buying a truck in 2027 when it comes down to reliability? Let's talk about that for a second. For the most part, laws have been relaxed since Donald Trump took office. And one thing I'll tell you is this. I think personally, things could be done a little bit better. Now, you guys know how I feel about emissions equipment. I've always told you guys this. I have nothing against emissions equipment. I've said this in a lot of different videos. I just don't like the conversations that we have. Emissions control is exactly what it is, and that word control is the problem. Now, CAFE, which is corporate average fuel economy, is something that has been enacted for decades. I would say back in the 1970s is probably when it got enacted. And what that requires is for the manufacturers to meet an average fuel economy for their automobiles. And it can be categorized for trucks, passenger cars, like sedans, even I would even say SUVs, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. So across the lineup, you have to average a certain number. Now, I think the last time I looked, it was like, I want to say combined, it was like 40 miles to the gallon. I think that was like the rule that they had. Now, in a lot of cases, the manufacturers were required to meet those standards. And if they created EVs, they were given credits to be able to build trucks like this. So most of you know, if you're looking at a HD Super Duty pickup truck, they don't have fuel economy numbers on the window sticker. So you guys see here, and maybe you won't be able to see it. Here it is. No fuel economy numbers, simply because of the class of these trucks. So they're not required to show fuel economy numbers. And if they were, then it would bring down the average significantly. So these are excluded simply because the manufacturers back in the day could buy credits to actually continue to build these trucks so consumers can still buy them. Because after all, there are a lot of consumers that help us a lot doing hot shot and delivering goods for us. So if you're looking at a half-ton truck like this, or even that Dodge Durango down there, you'll see fuel economy numbers for those because they're required to meet that national average, right? Now, most of you know Ram does have a high output and a standard output version of their Hurricane engine. It's an inline 6 twin turbo engine, and they also have what's in these RHOs. And by the way, I've been waiting on this truck to get here. This is a Longhorn for the half-ton. I might do a video on this truck today. These trucks here have the high output version of that engine. So if you're looking at a standard output Hurricane engine, that requires a 0W20 oil. If you're looking at the high output, it's a 0W40. Now, most of you guys remember back when GM was going through all this mess. They're still kind of continuing to go through this mess with their 6.2 liter. One of the recalls that they did required the dealer to check for any potential wear items that would deem the engine needing to be replaced. But if it did not need to be replaced, it was required to continue to run a 0W40 oil versus a 0W20. Now, you guys know Josh over at Truck Stuff. He basically showed me on a cardboard box just how just how fast and how liquefied a 0W20 oil is compared to like a 0W40 and 10W30. So in other words, if I were looking to buy a automobile today, knowing what I know, I would venture to say I would probably run a little bit higher viscosity, because that's probably the issues we're seeing. Now, a lot of you guys know I've been running a 15W40 in my GMC. And if you own a Ram HD or if you own a Ford Super Duty, they no longer take a 15W40. I asked my friend who owned one of these trucks, I asked him, what oil does your truck take? He didn't know, and I was just kind of testing him. I will go off on a whim. I know some of you guys are gonna hate me for saying this. You see right there? That says 10W30, and you can use a 5W40. So here's what you have to understand. The oils that we use today are more advanced. And the biggest issue I see with these engines today is that the tolerances are so tight that they have to run these lighter oils, right? The lighter weight oils. This is simply because of how the engines are designed today. But that's all because of CAFE. And this is where the manufacturers screw themselves. See, their biggest client is the consumer, right? Why didn't they include us in these conversations with what the government was trying to push? Specifically, the Democrats. I'm just being honest here. The Democrats do want a better environment by any means necessary. So that is the main reason why these trucks, cars, SUVs have been more unreliable, because they're not built the same as they were 30 years ago. I mean, what were the oil viscosities back in the day? 5W30 was a big one. I remember that's what I ran in my Nissan Pathfinder. It was 2001. 10W30 was something that you would hear being used in sport cars, right? But now, even a Lamborghini is being required to run like a 0W20, all in the name of fuel economy. And because of that, we're seeing major failures with these engines. So here's what I'm going to recommend to you. I'm going to be doing videos around this, and I want you guys to understand something. I think that, yes, cars can be reliable. Like this Ford F-350, I don't hear about a lot of failures with these trucks. I walk through the shop at least twice a week, and I don't ever see these trucks cab off anymore. And I think it's because Ford has probably made some changes to make this truck a little bit better. They still run the CP4 fuel pumps. And again, I have not heard of any issues with those grenading and obviously taking out the whole entire fuel system, which can cost you close to $20,000. So I would recommend you do an oil analysis. I just created a website, and on my website, you can buy an oil analysis. My wife just got a really nice car. I'm not gonna say what it is in this video, but I basically saw that it also runs a 0W40 oil. I'm gonna run an oil analysis at 5,000 miles. Once we, or I might even do a little bit sooner, because we may not drive this that long, because I don't expect us to keep it long. But it is used, it has 32,000 miles on it, and it's a Lamborghini Urus, if you are wondering. That's why I didn't want to say it, because it's kind of hard for me to say that. It's weird that I own that. And I want to see, because they require a 9,000 mile oil change, or 1 year, obviously. If anyone is going 9,000 miles on an oil change, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to have issues with your engine. And it's the same issue with the Ram trucks with the Cummins. If you're buying a Ram truck, if you go in the owner's manual, it does say that you can go 15,000 miles on an oil change. Ram trucks have been having cam and lifter failures since 2022 and on, right? And it's simply because people are probably taking Ram's word for it and say, okay, cool, I'll go 15,000 miles on oil change. It's going to save you money. Just like on some automobiles, they're saying that you can go 9,000 miles. Now, fuel dilution is the biggest killer to any diesel engine out there, simply because of the oxidation from biodiesel. And in a lot of cases, a lot of people don't even know they're putting biodiesel in their trucks simply because they don't have the same standards as diesel number 2, right? Diesel number 2, diesel number 1 has different regulations compared to biodiesel, and that should scare you. So I'm going to show you something real quickly off a website, Diesel Hub. This is why you have to be very mindful of biodiesel. I'm going to keep telling you this until you understand why your truck will probably have issues in the future. You have to do an oil analysis. I just did an oil analysis on my GMC, and it actually had in red base saying fuel dilution. So right away I decided to change my oil, because obviously if there's fuel dilution, that means you could potentially be breaking down the oil that you're using in your truck or car, SUV. So if you are concerned about reliability, I do recommend highly that you start doing oil analysis. It's not expensive and it's not hard. You can have your mechanic do the test for you, and then you can just ship it out. I also would recommend this. Read your owner's manual. I read my owner's manual every once in a while. Heck, you can put it by your toilet, because that's the best time to read, because you're going to be there for at least 10 minutes. And I also recommend understanding, cold starts. Cold starts are another killer to gas and diesel. So if you're someone who's running your engine hard in the morning time, and you're late for work, you start that sucker up and you're just going. You're not letting it get up to operating temperature before you give it the juice. Another thing to consider is idling. If you're someone that likes to idle, that's something else to consider. I think that some people should be driving EVs just simply because of how they treat their internal combustion engines. They're not the same. They are more fragile compared to EVs. EVs, they have no break-in period. You don't have to worry about fuel dilution. They are better in every way, but they're not for everyone. Like for myself, I don't see myself buying an EV anytime soon, because I'm just not an EV person right now. I don't see the value, and I like the feel of an internal combustion engine. So one day maybe I'll get there, but for right now, I'd rather deal with the struggles of owning internal combustion engines. But I hope this video was helpful. I think that the type of fuel you put in your truck, the type of engine oil you put in, these things matter today more than ever, because things are clearly not better. In fact, some people are starting to go back and find older trucks, cars, and SUVs simply because they were more reliable. So just consider what I said. The manufacturers should have 100% pushed back on the government when they were pushing these new laws and regulations. There's nothing wrong with better efficiency, but we all know by now, because of other content creators, that the combustion of these engines, the piston design, the fuel systems that we have can all contribute to better fuel economy. But is it really about that? Because we are so much more advanced than we've ever been, and yet things are not much better. I think that an engine should still be able to go 100,000 miles without any issues, 500,000 miles without any issues if it's a diesel. But we're not seeing that. We're seeing engines go down before 40,000 miles, especially on the GM side of things. So again, this is a great time to start really looking at ways you can protect yourself, because a 9,000 mile or 15,000 mile or even a 7,500 mile oil change is probably too long, depending on how you drive your truck. If you do a lot of idling, if you do a lot of stop and go traffic, if you are someone who lives in colder climates, you need to probably run a different viscosity because of that. And if you're not aware of these things, if this is the first time you're hearing it, then yeah, you will have issues moving forward buying new vehicles past 2027. So again, do your research, read your owner's manual, and understand your equipment. See you guys in the next video.